I've been a high school psychology teacher, um, I think probably for over 20 years, perhaps, and then a clinical psychologist for about the same time. So while I was a high school teacher, I decided to go back to school and get my PhD in clinical psychology. And I took a few years leave to be in school and do my internships and stuff like that. But uh, through school and then also teaching psychology and being a clinical psychologist, I've maintained a private practice and have been doing those things probably even a little bit longer because I had an interest in it prior to going to school. So I'd have to say probably 25 years I've been working on these things. I have dealt with a number of different things through the years. When I worked initially at a clinic, I dealt with families and children and adults and a variety of different things. And I would say in the last 15 years, I've just focused on adults. And I think the two primary reasons people come in to see a psychologist would be due to anxiety issues or depression issues. So those are the main things that people are coming in with, and then basically helping them individually improve their lives, improve their functioning, how happy they are, and have had some success, thankfully, with people helping them lead happier lives. In terms of how people develop either who they are as a person or how they develop problems, I really am a believer that that's a combination of temperament, which we're born with. And it's interesting reading different researchers who, pediatricians, or excuse me, obstetricians who deliver a lot of babies, and also pediatricians who deal with the children after they're born. There are a lot of people in the field who say there are certain personality types that children exhibit even from the moment that they're born. Some children are born fearful, some are very calm, some are angry. So you get a variety of sort of this initial push that I think comes from nature that will shape how people interact in their environment. And then the other piece that I feel, I guess I use a lot in my practice is some of the attachment theory by someone starting with Bowlby, John Bowlby, or Mary Ainsworth. They look at how primary caregivers, and in most cases it is the mother, how they attach with their infant. And there's often some language talked about the goodness of fit between basically a mother's temperament and perhaps the issues that she's going through in her life, and then the infant and the child that she's raising, and how well those personalities mesh together, and the needs of the child mesh with the abilities and the needs of the mother. So those are early on, I think, some of the things that are kind of foundational in determining how a person feels in the world, how secure they feel, or how anxious they may feel, and develops a I guess sort of the bedrock or the foundation of how people will then interact as difficult things happen in their life or stresses happen in their life, and then they'll respond in those ways that oftentimes can be either healthy and very resilient or may sort of build on the depression and the anxiety that they may be experiencing. So I think I sort of addressed this a bit in my answer to the last question, that it's a bit of a mix. Why people get mental health problems is a mix of that temperament that they're born with, the match and attachment style between their caregivers, and then sometimes just life can throw some really difficult circumstances at people, losses of jobs, illnesses, different things like that that people have to deal with. But I guess even when you look at all of those things, Some people can be born into families where there is a genetic component, where depression may run in a family, anxiety may run in a family, schizophrenia. I don't deal with that much at all, but those things do have a genetic component, which increases a person's likelihood of getting the illness. One of the things, though, that I feel like is really important to remember is that even though you may have a genetically increased risk for developing a disorder, that biology is not destiny. I wouldn't be in the field that I am right now if I felt like everything was based on biology and there was no helping people get past those things. We know now with the research that we've been doing in the field of, not me personally, but psychologists, that there are a lot of skills that can be taught to help people increase their resilience, increase their mental health, and there are definitely skills that people can learn as parents to help teach their children. Adults can learn, children can learn, and you can overcome a lot of mental illnesses that may have had a biological root. And even if you can't get rid of something like perhaps bipolar illness, or even depression, with a combination of healthy living and these good skills and sometimes medications, people can really lead very normal and happy lives. I think one of the reasons there's such a debate between nature and nurture is people, first of all, would like to understand how problems develop, how certain people learn to do the good things that they're doing, and finding answers. I mean, I guess that's the main thing, is if you can look at something that's a genetic component, or maybe it's polygenic, genetic. There are several different genes that can create a weakness for somebody to have maybe an eating disorder or an anxiety disorder. And trying to understand that from the nature point of view, I think that's what allows people to feel perhaps a greater sense of power or control or ability to change that. I mean, people would really like to cure people of these problems. So from the nurture point of view, the more we can focus on that, and I guess it's for the clarity perhaps of the research, the more I can isolate either a nurture factor or a nature factor, then I can measure the effect size of an intervention and see if that's the thing that's really helping someone create better health. I do think we end up coming to the idea, even though we're trying to isolate factors all the time in experiments, what is the effect of this independent variable on the experiment, or, what's the result? What's the dependent variable? And should I do it again? And how much of this do we need? Whether you're doing that from a nature point or a nurture point, you're always trying to help someone. But I think, again, we've come to a point where I think everybody pretty much agrees that it's a combination of both of those things. And it's just perhaps, I guess I would see perhaps just for the experimental purposes, people do like to separate it. But some people also do firmly believe that there's more of one than another. I think I may lean a little bit more towards the nurture element. Again, biology's not destiny.